In this video, we'll take a look at Excel 2013, Chapter 4, Skill-Based Training. There's a couple things to do in here that refer to tables and filtering and sorting. It really lets you take your data and make it more useful to you, so you can easily look things up, easily find the information you're looking for. So it really makes Excel a much more powerful tool if you can get good at this stuff. So first step, we are going to page down 3 times just so we can see how the worksheet looks. We're actually going to have to page down more than 3 times if your screen resolution is not that great like mine is on the laptop here. Just keep in mind, sometimes things look a little different on the smaller resolutions than my IT lab was probably expecting. And then we're going to go back all the way up to cell A1. You can page up to get there. And then we're going to freeze the top row. So we'll go to the View tab, and we're going to choose the Freeze Panes option, and we're going to choose to freeze the top row. This is a really handy feature in Excel because then when you page down later on and you're looking through all this data, you don't forget what was in those particular cells. Notice that row 1 kind of follows with us all the way down and then all the way back up. Now, the next step, we're going to unfreeze the pane. It does nothing bad to your data, it just makes Excel much more usable. And then we're going to go into cell B2 because what we want to do is we want to freeze this top row. We also want to freeze this column. So by going into B2, we're going into the cell that everything above it will be frozen and everything to the left of it will be frozen when we choose to freeze panes. So if we want more cells frozen, just select the appropriate cell and all of the rows and columns will be frozen. So we'll choose freeze panes from here, and now if we scroll to the right and left or up and down, we're going to keep those cells available to us. Here in the next step, we're going to display the worksheet in a page break preview view, and this gives us a nice way to look at our file in the way that it will be printed out, and we can manipulate it then from that page break preview. So we're going to click over down here, and it's going to look a little different. It's not the screen you'd usually use for data entry, it's the one you use when you're planning on printing. Now, depending on your connection, sometimes this part is a little bit slow. Just click once and it'll eventually get there. Something else strange about my IT lab, sometimes you can click on this bandwidth status and it tells you it's poor, but then once you click on it, it suddenly goes back to this great connection. I don't know if it's just kind of waking some things up behind the scenes. I don't know if it's complete placebo. I have no idea what's happening there, but it seems to not mean too much when your connection is good or poor. Okay, we're going to go to cell A45. We'll scroll down to that one, and we're going to do a page break at this one. We'll go page layout, and we'll go to breaks, and we'll choose to insert a page break. What that's going to do is it's going to shift where that page is supposed to break. We're going to guarantee that it breaks right before that A45 line. Now it should take effect here just a second. The more of the screen that gets updated, the slower my IT lab does tend to run on these things. So you just kind of have to bear with it. There's really not a way to make it go any faster, and you can probably rest assured it's probably not your connection, because this does seem to happen on a lot of different computers, on a lot of different platforms, on a lot of different network connections. We're going to set the range E1 to J11 as our print area. Maybe when we print out we only want to see a certain amount. So we can go to the page layout tab, we'll go to print area, and we'll set that print area. So when we do print, the only stuff that's going to print is what we've set, and this is going to be what our page 1 ends up looking like. We're going to change the scaling back to 95%, so it'll be a little bit smaller. Once you enter it in there, you'll want to click off of it so my IT lab picks that up. And then we're going to then clear the print area just to see what happens there. If we clear this print area, it goes back to the default page setup. So it would print just as if we had never set that print area. So we're not locking anything in stone, we're simply giving ourselves the option to customize a print job, and then we can always revert back from it. On this next step, we're going to set this row as titles so that they repeat on every page. So we'll click on the top row here. We're going to go to the Page Layout tab, and what we want to do is we want to print the titles. So what is the title row that we want to repeat? We can click on this and then go select it. And just by clicking just anywhere in that row, it's going to specify that entire row here. And then we can hit enter so that is selected, and we'll say OK. Now every time we print a page, that row will always be at the top, so it's much easier to read. Just makes our lives a whole lot easier when it comes to looking at all of this data. We'll select columns A and B as titles to repeat on each page. Now we're looking at these as the row headers, and we want to see these on each page. So we'll go back to print titles. We'll say which columns do we want to repeat on the left, and we'll select A and B, from A to B. Hit enter and say OK. Then we're going to go to our page preview. We're going to take a look at the first 3 pages, and then we're going to print. We're not actually going to print out a copy of this information. We're just taking a look at this and then seeing that that title does get repeated and those columns get repeated on every page. And all this other data will be different on each page. And then we'll say print and move on to the next step. With this activity, what we're going to do is we're going to create a table from our existing data. So this one's kind of neat. This gives us the ability to have some really nice tools for sorting and filtering our data. And we may have some great data in here, but we want to be able to use it more powerfully. We want to be able to use these titles as ways that we can choose to filter things or customize, and we're going to do that for many of the upcoming activities. So with A1 selected, we're going to create a table, and we can do that from the Insert tab, and we're going to go to Table. And where's the data from our table? It is A1 all the way to J65. It was able to detect this. It looks at our data and it says, yeah, that looks like a table. And my table does have headers. It's going to detect that these are the headers of our table so that we can use those to do our filtering and sorting. And once this takes effect, we should have that step completed. Good connection again. Sometimes it feels like it loads a little faster. Sometimes it might just be one of those placebo effects where you see that your connection is good and things feel like they're moving faster. Who knows if it really makes any difference? Because now it's apparently poor again. Okay, we're going to delete the operator table column from the table. This is the operator table column. We're not going to delete column B. It'd be really easy to just go in here and wipe that out. We just don't want it wiped out. We just don't want to see it right now in our table. So we're going to go to Home, if you're not already there, and we're going to go to Delete the Table Column. And there's actually a special area here that allows us to delete that table column. And it should just disappear. And B will actually get reassigned. We're still going to use the B cell once this goes through. may not have taken that. I'm going to try it one more time. Oh, nope, it looked like it did. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the down payment cell here. We're going to type in a new header, down underscore pay, and we're going to say owed in K1. And I'm just tabbing out of those once I'm done typing in, because it's once you move off the cell that my IT Lab picks up that you've made a change. Doesn't look like it took owed, but it might click through here in just a second. And there we are. And now we're going to use the Format Painter feature to copy the formatting from these cells over onto these, because notice these look different and we want our table to look the same. So we'll go to one of the cells that we like the formatting for. We're going to use this brush. We click on this, and this tooltip is actually pretty helpful. It says highlight the content you want, click on this, and then select the other stuff that you want the formatting to carry over for. So there we go. And now we're going to select what we want that formatting to cover. Select those and hit enter, and notice the black text has carried over. On to the next step here. We're going to make a new table row. At this point, we're looking to add one in here at row 31. So we're going to select a cell in row 31, and we're actually going to add a row above it, which is going to become row 31. So just like we'd insert a normal row, we're going to insert a table row above that. And then we're going to type in some data. 2016-068 and Sebastian. And when we tab away from that one, the rest of the data gets filled in for us by my IT Lab. And now we're going to add another table row down here in 67. Now your first inclination might be to go here and insert a table row. It's really not something we need to do, since we're just appending to the end of the table. Excel is smart enough to know that this is going to be part of our table as well. So 2016-104 and Ambrose, and the rest of the text should fill in there as well. One of the nice things about tables is Excel kind of looks at all the data together, almost like it's a database, and you'll see more of this type of table functionality when you look at Access in some of the later chapters. But for now, we're going to use a feature that is a little bit more Access-like, and we're going to remove the duplicates in the table. If we go to the Table Tools and go under Design, we can choose to remove duplicates. Now, maybe somebody inadvertently put the same information in twice. We can automatically go through and have it remove any rows that are identical. So we'll select that and we'll say OK. It found one duplicate value and it pulled it out of there, and the 65 unique values will stay in there. So we'll have one less row after this process finishes. It helps to make sure that there isn't any user error. Maybe you mistype something or lose your place and you start typing again. You can just easily not worry about having any duplicates. You can run it if you don't even expect to have any duplicates, just to double check your work as well. In the next step here, we're going to change our formatting of our table so it fits the style that we may want to work with here. We're going to use Table Style Medium 3, and that's also under the Table Tools over here. It's the third style on the first row in the Medium section. So the third style in the first row under the Medium section. All you need to do is have your mouse somewhere in the table itself, choose this feature, and it'll automatically readjust all the formatting for your table. It's a really nice way to get started when you first make a table, because I find that these alternating rows, the white and then the light color and the white and the light color, make it really easy to look down a row and see all of your data. Now we're going to use a couple of features within the table functionality. We're going to sort some data. Here we're going to sort the March data worksheet by the sales last in alphabetical order. Maybe we want to quickly look at this data in alphabetical order, but we want all of the data to follow through. For example, we don't want all of these pieces that are associated with this record to shift away from the data that they already have. We want it all to follow through. And whenever we use a table, it assumes that that row belongs together. So we'll click on that little down arrow. We're going to click Sort A to Z, and it's going to automatically sort all this sales last information. So if you're looking for some data for a particular person, it can be really easy to find that way. You can sort it without having to worry that you're going to lose any of the data that you've already put in there, or scramble it up or anything. Once we're working with tables, that data is designed to stay together. Now we're going to sort the table by amount from the largest to the smallest value. Maybe we want to look at the values of these sales, or whatever it is that we're looking at here. We can sort from the largest to the smallest, and all of that information will get resorted. Now I do find that this particular My IT Lab skill-based training does run a lot slower than the other ones. Sometimes it may be time of day, but in this case it really seems like this particular training runs a lot slower. And I have a feeling it's because the entire screen has to change every time we're sorting. Not only are we doing a bunch of sorting, but we're changing a lot of what we're seeing in this simulation. Without knowing actually what's going on behind the scenes in these trainings, it's hard to really know. We're going to use the sort dialog box this time. And to do that, we're going to go under data. We're going to use this. Now there's ways you can sort with these down arrows, but we're going to use this. There's actually a couple other places you can sort too, but we're going to use the sort dialog box. This one lets us add levels of sorting. So first thing we want to do here is we want to sort by pay type, and we're going to sort that in alphabetical order, A to Z. And then we're going to use that same dialog box again, and we're going to add a second level sort. So once everything's sorted like that, within those same entries, maybe other things that are paid in full. Of all the things paid in full, we'll sort those in another way. And that second level is going to give us that additional sorting functionality. So we're going to add a level, and we're going to sort by trans type right here, and we're going to sort that in alphabetical order, and then we're going to add a third level, and we're going to sort by the amount. It's down here in the bottom, and this one's going to be from the largest to the smallest. So you can have this sort any way you want in multiple layers. And once we click OK on that, Excel reorders all of those rows, and we should be on to the next step. Now we're going to start doing some filtering. If we want to hide certain data so that we can really focus in on some of our data but get the other stuff out of our way temporarily without deleting it, we can use these filters. So we're going to set a filter to display records where the sales last is Gallagher. We just want to see Gallagher's stuff. So we can click on that down arrow. We're going to deselect all of the entries except for Gallagher. The only stuff that's going to show up in this table right now is going to be Gallagher's information. So that makes it really handy. It's just a subset of our information, and you'll notice that a lot of the rows are missing. It's because Gallagher wasn't the only guy making sales, apparently. So we've hidden everybody that doesn't fit that profile. Now we're not going to clear the existing filter. We're going to additionally filter where the department contains dining room only. So we'll pull away everything else but dining room. Now you could select dining room and bedroom if you wanted, so it gives you more power in your filters. Show what you want, hide what you don't. But in this case, we're going to do dining room only. And you'll notice that Gallagher and dining room, when those both fit, there's only a few different records that fit that profile. We're going to select the range I-15 to I-63, and you'll notice they're not all there, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to select this range anyway. Actually, just the I range. And we're going to look at the status bar statistics. Down here we can see there's only 8 transactions. We're going to set a filter to display records where the amount is greater than or equal to 5,000. Now, one thing I find interesting about my IT lab in this case is you can also define what you want selected right in this window here. I could say I5 colon I63, and when I hit enter, it's still going to select this range, but that's not going to show me the status down here. You have to use the mouse in this particular step of my IT lab to get to see the average, count, and sum. So when we're looking for that, you can't type up here just like you would in normal Excel. You're going to have to do the select for that to take effect. Now we're going to set the filter here to display records where the amount is greater than or equal to 5,000. So we're going to use a number filter where we are greater than or equal to 5,000. So only those records greater than or equal to 5,000 will remain. Everything else will be hidden from this particular view. On this next one, we're going to set a filter to display the dates from 3/16/2016 all the way to 3/31/2016. Here we're going to do a date filter. A date filter between, and you can browse for these if you want, or you can just do a 3-16-2016, 3-31-2016, and that should take care of that as well. So our filter will only include those. So the 3.2 is now gone. It's really given us the ability to zoom in right on those particular rows. So imagine you have a lot of data in there, hundreds of rows, maybe even thousands of rows. You can really zoom in right on what you want pretty quickly. You don't have to delete stuff out, and you don't have to use the find function. You can see it as if it's a custom report. So we're going to create a structured reference in cell H4, already in H4, with an if function. So to do this, we're going to go under formulas. We're going to use the insert function. And we are going to use the if function. This kind of helps us build the function without having to type everything in. Our logical test is going to be anytime the pay underscore type is equal to the text paid in full, and make sure you have capitalization correct here. So anytime this becomes true, the result in that cell is going to be amount. The number that exists currently in the amount in the same record. If the value is false, it's going to be amount times $C $1, which is this 25%. Somewhere I must have missed a character. Whoops, held down shift a little too long. $C, $1. Just got to be exact on these. My mistake. But there you'll see that because we are working with a table, we expect that all the rows are going to be the same type of data. When you do that structured reference, it automatically throws that down in all the other rows, and it takes care of it for you. We're going to go into I4, we're going to create another structured reference, and we're going to simply do a subtraction here. Now, you might not see subtraction. Normally we'd want diff, but we're not going that route in here. So we're just going to make this a real simple function. We're going to say equals, and then we'll use our bracket, and we're going to subtract down payment, which is in this case down underscore pay, equals down with brackets. We need the brackets to specify that we're talking about a column, down underscore pay minus bracket amount. So taking this minus this. I think I missed a bracket. We'll try that one more time. Bracket down underscore pay, bracket minus bracket amount, bracket. Now you can see that I've typed that incorrectly because this is highlighted and this is highlighted, and that formula should accept. Let's try one more thing here. It does need to be precise. It's not a sum function, although sum would technically work. We're not really doing any addition here. Try this another way. Equals down payment. Oops. Equals down payment minus amount. Okay. So, what's going wrong here? Basically, I read the directions wrong. We want to subtract the down payment from the amount, so I had this completely backwards. I actually want the amount, and I want to take the down payment out of the amount. Some of you watching probably picked up on this already and said, what is that guy doing? But this one should take. Okay, so sometimes it may seem like, gosh, I'm doing everything exactly the way my IT lab wants. Sometimes you just have to clear your mind and say, what am I doing wrong? I think it's all correct. And the inclination is sometimes to think maybe my IT lab is broken. Well, it's really not. 99% of the time, it's something that maybe in the instructions you may have just overlooked. Just like I did. So we're going to show the total row, and that's under the Table Tools Design. We just select total row. And when we select that, way down here at the bottom, a total row is automatically put in. Now, we want to add the sum function in for the down payment and the amount columns. Down payment and amount are H and G. So we'll go down here back to that total row, and you can click on that total row, hit this down arrow, and choose sum. And it'll automatically sum up anything that's visible. If you filter it out, this will also be updated. So this total is always based on what you can see. If you filter stuff out, the total row is still really effective because it will only include the stuff you're particularly looking for. So back when we were looking at Gallagher's sales, the total row would show just Gallagher's sales totals. So it's kind of like, again, customizing a report just for you. Here we're going to do that exact same thing again. We'll just look right at Gallagher's records. We'll pull out all of the other salespeople, leaving Gallagher in. We'll say OK. And then once that clicks over, we should be able to see that the total row is updated. Only Gallagher, and the total row is only Gallagher's data. Couple more activities here. Some of these are actually kind of easier to do. We're going to convert the table in the March range worksheet to a range. All we really need to do for this one, we just need to click this button right here and convert that to a range, and we are sure. And then it has the range functionality. Next, we are going to remove the fill color from rows 4 to 68. Maybe we don't like the style that's placed into the table for us. We can pull that formatting right on out of there. It's going to be just like as if we were doing shading in a cell. All we need to do is select our rows, and the only tricky thing about this one is actually selecting all the rows. If things are running a little bit slowly, which sometimes they are, as you're dragging down here, this can go a little bit slowly and it can be a little jumpy. But we need rows 4 to rows 68. Okay, looks like I've got them. And now we're going to go here. We're going to remove the fill on those rows. And now, instead of using those table styles, we're going to use some conditional formatting. So when data looks a certain way, we're going to put some special formatting on it so our eye is very easily drawn to those pieces of data. We'll scroll back up here and we're going to make a conditional format. And anytime we have a cell that says Sebastian for a first name, we're going to use a green fill with dark green text. So we'll do some conditional formatting, and for this one it's going to be highlight, as the instructions say. We're going to highlight cells containing with text. Oops. Let's go get that A4 through A48 range. I'm sorry, A68. And we'll do conditional formatting on those. Highlight cells where the text contains Sebastian. And it picked up that Sebastian happened to have been the first thing in there. We want green fill, dark green text. And now every time it sees Sebastian in row 1, green fill, dark green text. It's very easy for your eye to catch those particular records that you're looking for. And then when you're done with the conditional formatting, you can pull that out of there as well. As you can see, this is all about usability. We want this to be as useful for us as it can possibly be. We're going to apply conditional formatting for the top 3 items in the amount column. So it's going to end up being the top 3 here for G4 to G68. Again, I'm going to do it this way to select these because I find it easier than the dragging in my IT lab. Let's try that again. G4 colon G68. And it should select those for me. Conditional formatting. And now I want a top bottom rule. Now even though this says top 10 items, it lets us adjust that down. So we can say just the top 3 items if we want. We'll erase the 10 and put in a 3, and we're going to leave the light red fill and dark red text. So now the top 3 will be highlighted in that way. On the next step, we're going to do some gradient data bars. This is kind of like almost like a progress bar would be. It's going to show the amount relative to the largest sum in a particular cell. So kind of behind the scenes, it's almost like we're building a little column chart in those cells. So we're going to select a range H4 through H68, and we're going to use gradient purple data bars. This is also conditional formatting. This is a data bar, gradient fill, and it's the purple one. It's actually going to be this one over here. It kind of looks pink. And without the tooltips popping up, sometimes it can be tough to find that one. But it is that last one. It's kind of pinkish purple. Then we're going to do one more conditional formatting activity here, so you can see another way to do it. This way we're going to use a formula to create our conditional format. We're going to create a new rule that uses a formula to determine which cells to format in our range D4 to D68. So under furniture, selecting all that furniture column, we're going to create a new conditional formatting rule. So if you really want to get custom, you can go in here and go with a new rule. And this is going to allow us to format anything that fits this profile. If it's Sebastian's sale, as well as it's greater than 5,000, then we're going to format just those. So we're going to use a formula to determine which cells. So when this formula resolves to true, we're going to format those cells. So we'll just type it in exactly as it's listed down here. Just to be sure, we'll do all caps as it specifies. When A4 is equal to Sebastian, and when I4 is greater than 5,000. So when both of those are true statements, we're going to apply a bold font style. Just a bold. And we'll say OK to that. So all of Sebastian's that are over 5,000 in the I column, you can see those are bold. Sebastian's that aren't over 5,000 would not be bold. We're going to edit that conditional formatting rule, and we're going to change it up a bit. We can go back to Manage Rules, and we can see that rule again. And then we can choose to edit it. And now we're going to apply some borders and shading. We're going to go and format that text, and down here we're going to apply a border. It's going to be an outline border, and it's going to be blue, accent 5, lighter 80%. Blue accent 5 for the border, blue accent 5, lighter 80% for the background fill. So we're looking at the 9th column for the border, and then for the fill, we're actually looking for the 9th column, but we're doing an 80% fill. So we're going to choose this one. Again, without the tooltips, this can be a little tricky. You can hover over that for a long time and you probably aren't going to see anything. So either pull up your regular Excel and see what those really are, or just follow the one I clicked. And we'll say OK to that, and that rule is going to be modified to take those changes into effect. You can apply and see it, but apply is really OK without leaving the window, so you can just say OK. And now we've completed all 21 steps of Excel Chapter 4 skill-based training.